They planned to put me in a home and keep the house. I signed the papers they brought. The home they chose had a surprise. I owned it. Family story. I still remember the exact sound of the front door closing that Tuesday afternoon in late September. The oak floors in my living room in Maplewood Crest, the quiet suburb just outside Columbus, always creaked a little when more than two people walked across them at once. That day there were four of us. Me, my son Derek, his wife Amber, and my daughter Paige. They had arrived together in Derek's black SUV, the one with the HOA parking sticker still stuck to the windshield from when they used to visit on Sundays. I was 71. My husband Ray had been gone 4 years by then. The house we bought in 1987 still smelled faintly of the cedar chest in the hallway and the lemon oil I used on the banister every other Saturday. I kept the place neat. The garden beds along the front walk were mulched. The gutters were clean. I cooked for myself, paid the utilities on time, and still drove to the grocery store twice a week. But according to my children, I was becoming a problem. Derek sat on the edge of the couch with his elbows on his knees. Amber stayed standing, arms crossed, looking at the family photos on the mantel like she was already pricing them. Paige sat closest to me and held my hand the way people do when they are about to deliver bad news they have already decided is for your own good. "Mom," Derek said, "we've been talking. The house is too much for you now. The stairs, the yard, the winter. We're worried." I told them I was fine. I had a cleaning lady every other week. The neighbor's grandson mowed the lawn. I had fallen once in the kitchen 3 months earlier, but it was a slip on water from the ice maker and nothing more. Still, they had already made up their minds. Amber pulled a folder from her large purse. Inside were several sheets of paper with neat tabs. "We found a place," she said. "It's called Willow Grove Residences. Independent living, but with help if you need it. Beautiful grounds. Meals if you want them. Activities. You'll like it." Paige squeezed my hand. "And the house, well, it doesn't make sense for it to sit empty. Derek and I can handle the sale. We'll make sure you're comfortable. The proceeds will help cover the costs at Willow Grove." They made it sound like kindness. They brought coffee from the shop on the corner, the way I liked it. They talked about how Ray would have wanted me safe. They stayed for almost 2 hours. By the time the sun started dropping behind the maple trees across the street, I felt tired in a way that had nothing to do with age. I looked at the papers. Admission forms. A power of attorney update. A simple transfer authorization for the house once the sale closed. Everything was already filled out. All it needed was my signature. I signed. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself they loved me. I told myself the house had become too quiet anyway. Derek took the folder, kissed the top of my head, and said they would handle everything. 2 weeks later a moving truck arrived. Most of my furniture went into storage. A few boxes of clothes and photographs rode with me in the back seat of Paige's car to Willow Grove Residences, 22 miles north of town in a development that used to be farmland. The entrance looked nice enough. Low brick buildings, walking paths, a small pond with ducks. A woman named Carol from the admissions office met us at the main doors with a clipboard and a bright smile. She showed me to Suite 14B. 1 bedroom, a small sitting area, a kitchenette. The windows looked out over a courtyard with raised garden beds. Derek and Amber stayed just long enough to carry in the boxes and tell me they would visit on the weekend. Paige lingered a few minutes longer, then hugged me and left. That first night I sat on the edge of the bed and listened to the unfamiliar sounds of other people living on the other side of shared walls. I cried for a while, quietly, the way you do when you do not want strangers to hear. In the morning I walked the courtyard and introduced myself to a few residents. Most were polite. A few already knew each other's life stories. I kept mine short. On the third day Carol asked me to come to the main office for a routine orientation. She had a thick binder open on her desk. We just need to confirm a few details about your residency, she said. Your children arranged everything, but the ownership paperwork on the property itself is a little unusual. I did not understand at first. She turned the binder around so I could see. There was a copy of a deed. Then a trust document. Then a series of property tax records going back 12 years. The name on all of them was mine. Eleanor Hayes. Not the married name I had used for decades. The name I was born with. The name that still appeared on a small set of documents I had kept in a safe deposit box at the credit union since before Ray and I ever bought the house in Maplewood Crest. Carol watched my face. According to these records, Willow Grove Residences sits on land that is held in a private trust you established in 1998. The operating company leases the buildings from that trust. You are listed as the sole beneficiary and controlling party. The monthly fees your family arranged are being paid into an account that ultimately routes back to the same trust. In practical terms, Mrs. Hayes, you own this place. I sat very still. The air in the office felt thinner than it had a minute earlier. Carol continued speaking in a careful voice, explaining that the trust had been set up quietly years earlier with the help of an attorney I had used only once. Ray had known. We had decided together, after a scare with his heart, that if anything ever happened to either of us, there should be a place that could not be sold out from under the surviving one. We never told the children. We never needed to. Life moved on. The land sat undeveloped for a long time. Later, a developer approached the trust about building a senior community. The lease was signed. The buildings went up. The trust collected rent. I received quiet statements once a year that I filed without opening most of the time. I had signed the papers my children brought because I believed I was giving up the only home I had left. I had not known I was walking into a place that already belonged to me. Carol asked if I wanted to speak with the trust attorney. I said yes. By the end of that week, the picture was clear. The house in Maplewood Crest was still titled in my name. The transfer authorization I had signed had never been recorded because the sale had not yet closed. Derek and Amber had listed it with a realtor friend of theirs. Offers were starting to come in. Paige had been the one handling the email chain. I did not call them right away. I walked the courtyard again that evening and watched the ducks. I thought about the way Amber had looked at the photographs on the mantel. I thought about Derek's careful tone when he talked about making sure I was comfortable. I thought about Paige holding my hand while the papers sat open on the coffee table. On Saturday they came to visit, just as they had promised. They brought flowers and a new throw blanket for the chair in the sitting area. Derek talked about a strong offer on the house. Amber mentioned how much easier everything would be once the sale went through. Paige asked if I was settling in all right. I let them talk for a while. Then I set my coffee cup down and told them what Carol had shown me. The silence that followed was different from the quiet of the suite at night. Amber's face went pale. Derek started to speak and stopped. Paige looked at the floor. I did not raise my voice. I simply told them the transfer authorization would not be used. The house would not be sold. The trust attorney had already been instructed to freeze any further activity related to the property. I would stay at Willow Grove for as long as I chose, or I would return to Maplewood Crest. The choice was mine now, not theirs. Derek found his voice first. He said they had only been trying to help. Amber said the house was becoming a burden. Paige said she was worried about me falling again. I listened to each of them. Then I told them that worry was one thing and planning to put me away so they could keep the house was another. They left earlier than they had planned. The flowers stayed on the side table. The throw blanket remained folded on the chair. In the weeks that followed, I met with the attorney twice more. I updated the trust. I put the Maplewood Crest house into it as well. I hired a property manager to handle the rental if I decided not to return. I kept the suite at Willow Grove because the courtyard was pleasant and the staff treated me like a person instead of a problem to be solved. Some evenings I still sat on the edge of the bed and listened to the shared walls. The sadness did not disappear. It simply stopped being the only thing in the room. Derek called less often. Amber stopped coming. Paige visited once more, alone, and sat with me for an hour without saying much. Before she left, she asked if I hated them. I told her I did not. I told her I was disappointed in a way that would take longer to name than a single afternoon aloud. The house in Maplewood Crest still stands. The maple trees across the street still turn early in the fall. The cedar chest is still in the hallway. Some weekends I drive over and walk through the rooms. Other weekends I stay at Willow Grove and watch the ducks on the pond. The papers I signed that Tuesday in September are locked in a drawer now. They no longer have any power over the place I live or the place I own.